What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I finally got my hands on one that has been heavily requested for me to get and review for years at this point, and I had only smelled it on a coworker several years back when I used to work at Mercedes. So I finally got a bottle. I totally get the hype behind it. I totally understand why this is a lot of people's favorite version of Eros. We are talking about Versace Eros Flame. So stay tuned. So, briefly, we'll just look at the bottle, because the box, I mean, if you've seen an Eros box, you've seen the Eros Flame box, it's just red. That's literally the only difference. Have the Medusa head, literally same thing here. If you've seen an Eros bottle, it's just red. It's literally the only difference. Iconic nonetheless. There's a batch code on the bottom. In case anybody cares, you have that same pattern going across all the way on the back of the glass. Medusa head on the top. Atomizer does pretty well. Let's talk about this scent. So at the top, the difference here is it's a bit more spicy. So there is a little bit of a tie-in to the Eros DNA. You do get kind of that sweet vanillic type of tone, a little bit of the mintiness from the geranium, but it's much more zesty, orange forward, with some peppery spice. It's almost got like a blood orange feel, even though that's not the note. It's a very zesty orange. Beautiful, beautiful fragrance. And if, in fact, we're going to go ahead and spray a test strip. Why the hell not? I have a bunch of stuff on skin already, so we're not going to do that, because it'll get mixed in with a bunch of other things. But absolutely beautiful. There's this odd Chinotto note that I don't really distinctively know what it smells like, so I can't tell you what type of facet that brings to the fragrance. Now, this is according to the Parfumo note breakdown, which I would have had on screen by now. But beautiful, zesty, spiced orange, minty fresh, very woodsy and vanillic at the same time, but it's very woodsy. This is much more woodsy than all the other versions of Eros, because I do have the EDP and the Parfum. I have a bunch of fragrances that smell like the EDT, which has caused me to never get the EDT. But now that I have literally all of them minus the EDT, I'm going to have to get the damn EDT. And I'm sure I'll wear it and enjoy it just like I do with the rest. But this is hands down the best version of Eros in my opinion. Now, when I say hands down, it's not by a wide margin. I still appreciate the Eau de Parfum for what it is. I think of the original scent profile of the three concentrations available at the recording of this, the EDP, the Eau de Parfum, is the superior take on Eros, but this is Eros with a twist. It's an actual flanker, not just an increased oil concentration with a slight tweak to the notes as the other three are when you compare them side by side, whereas this has its own twist. Like I said, it's not apple fruitiness at the top. It is zesty, sharp, juicy orange with peppered spice that really separates this. That opening is a big difference, but still at its core, it's still Eros. Just a more woodsy take as it dries. Because, like I said before, the mintiness, the vanilla, all of the core elements minus the apple of Eros is here, but the changes I think are welcomed. It doesn't make it as juvenile as Eros can kind of come across. This is, I wouldn't necessarily call it matured, but it definitely doesn't smell like something that most teenagers are going to gravitate to, though I'm sure some do. But Eros is very popular among young men. Tongue twister. But yeah, for me, the scent profile, this is the best smelling one. Now, in regards to performance, it does what you would expect Eros to do. It performs. 8 to 10 hours of longevity can be expected, at least my experience. You may get more, you may get less, you may get the same. Who knows if you don't try it on your skin. But 8 to 10 hours, definitely very strong, well above average. And the projection here, I can't stop going back to it to sniff it. It's such a good scent. This is one of the better designer fragrances I've picked up in a while. Super enjoyable. Obviously, it's going to be highly rated at the end for those of you that hang around for the overall rating. Projection I've found to be somewhat inconsistent. Through my testing, through my wearings, it's been really strong to average. So I would put it somewhere in that moderate to heavy range for about 2 hours. Moderate heavy. Because sometimes it's moderate, which I would consider average, arm's reach type of stuff. Sometimes it's a little bit stronger than that. So it's kind of a mixed bag. I don't know what's the determining factor for the inconsistency, but it's not a drastic difference from wearing to wearing, but there are variations in the amount of performance that I do get. And then the sillage I would consider more in the moderate range, not the moderate to mild. Like, I do get nice light whiffs of it throughout. It's not overwhelmingly powerful, wafts that I do pick up throughout the life of the fragrance, but it is enough for me to consider it more than just the weaker side, which would be moderate to mild or just mild. It's kind of in that middle of the road average range at moderate, where it's pretty easy to detect. And you move and turn and go certain ways, I'll get nice little hits of it, a nice little puff of scent cloud to really enjoy the scent profile. It's across the board, I would call it above average, not quite a beast. Final thoughts on Versace Eros Flame. Like I've stated in this video prior, I think it is the best version of Eros. It stays true to the DNA. There are the core facets of Eros is here minus the apple. As far as the main things you've always been able to expect from an Eros fragrance is fruity apple, mint, which is either mint, geranium, or a combination of the two, and then the vanillic sweetness. Here you get a different fruity tone with some spicy, peppery orange going on. There's some lemon and other things, but it's mainly the orange and the pepper that I get from this, with still that minty geranium, vanillic tone, and a woodsy base, much more woodsy, less on the amber, because you get more of the amber with the original Eros. But the twist is not so great that I would say they're just capitalizing off the namesake, because Eros is an all-time great seller. They stayed true to the DNA while creating something slightly more unique than what the first three versions, even though this wasn't the newest version, this came out before the Parfum. This is definitely the best one. I think it's a great fragrance and an 8.5 out of 10. I think this is a great addition to anyone's collection at any age, especially if when you were maybe a younger man and you were a big fan of Eros EDT, and you want something that kind of will give you that nostalgic feeling of it, that enjoyment of the DNA, but enough of a twist to where it's maybe not as youthful and playful as maybe when you were in your 20s, now you're in your 30s, and you want a slightly more refined touch to that scent profile. Again, not the most mature scent in the world, but compared to Eros EDT, this grows up a little bit more. Like this comes along your path with you, I guess you could say. If you were a fan of the EDT in the past, Flame might be the best version for you. Well, that's my final thoughts on Eros Flame from Versace. And until next time, do me a real quick favor, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. So I do appreciate all the feedback, and I love hearing from you guys. How many of you are a fan of this one? I know there's a lot of people that love this one and it's their favorite, and I get it. It's become my favorite version of Eros. I would love to see them do a Parfum flanker to this. This is an Eau de Parfum. I would love to see an even richer, warmer take on this. Do I get a say in what they're going to do? Absolutely not, but it is something I would like to see. Who knows, maybe one day we get another Eros flanker, but they have big shoes to fill, because this Eros flanker is the best version of Eros. And until next time, I will say if you get your hands on Eros Flame and you give it a spray now, you'll probably end up thanking me later. Just that good. Have a good one, guys.